Hello there, this is Only One Kenobi, Only One. Welcome to this video, which is a showcase of all the figures and cards that I could think of that were associated with the Battle of Hoth that I own. I love Hoth and I love the Battle of Hoth very much, one of my favourite sequences of the Star Wars saga in total. I love the vehicles involved, I love the characters involved, the attire, everything. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get some of my loose collection back out again. If you follow my channel, you'll know that my loose collection is all currently in storage in boxes because there's nowhere or no place I can display my loose stuff. I only really publicly have, or on display that's visible in my home, my carded collection, which is in the other room. Please check my channel out if you haven't seen my full wall collection. If you're new, hop in on here today and subscribe. I'd love to talk about the vintage collection. I like to speculate as well about the future, so join in the discussion, subscribe. But because I did a few videos recently where I looked at my loose collection, some of the figures involved there, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get together every figure that I can think of that I own associated with Hoth and the Battle of Hoth. I don't own everything. There are gaps which I will discuss when I get round to them. But these are the best examples of every figure that I have. I decided against having duplicates. Let's go for a little flight now. Off we go. I decided against having every version of, for example here, the AT driver. I do own every single one. Yes, I do. I have everything from the vintage 80s version to the Power of the Force 2, but for the purpose of this video, because literally I am doing this on an ironing board, would you believe? This isn't even a tabletop, it's an ironing board. I thought, well, if I had everything on here, there'd be a lot of clutter. So I thought I would choose the best examples, and in some cases like these, the best two examples of an existing figure. So we're going to spin over here to the good guys, and who better to start than Commander Luke Skywalker? And there he is inside. This is a vintage collection snowspeeder, and there he is. The figure I have chosen here is actually Dagobah Landing Luke, who is still actually wearing his snowspeeder attire because he just left Hoth after the battle and went straight to find Yoda. But I like him in the cockpit, as I said in a recent video where I showed him off then as well, that his limbs are quite long, this figure, so he stretches out nicely to the control panel and he looks great. It's a little bit wasted having him inside a cockpit because he's such a good figure that you really need to display him like I've got this Wedge here with his helmet off, because the facial sculpt of Mark Hamill is exceptional. However, I do have two of them, so even though he was expensive, he still looks good inside that snowspeeder. But I thought I'd show you this as well. This is another alternative for a snowspeeder Luke, and that's from the Saga line of 2011. It's a really good figure. It's pretty much almost a repack or kit bash of this guy here, or vice versa. But yeah, there's another option you've got. That's from the 2011 Saga line, which is the purple, I beg your pardon, the navy blue packaging with orange trim. That's the line of figures he came out in 2011, so I got him at retail price, which was great. Anyway, so speaking of retail price, Dak Ralter here. I got this figure a while ago now, but it was the Black Series repack of this guy. He is Dak Ralter, and he was in the vintage collection in one of the first waves, and he's actually gone up quite a lot in value, so it was nice that he got repacked so people like myself could get hold of him at a lower price than buying him on a vintage card and opening him up. I like the character of Dak. I do believe that the actor who played him also played Boba Fett. Now please back me up on this one. I've heard the rumour that he played Boba Fett in one scene only, at Cloud City. The scene when they're going down the corridor after the torture. You know, he's no good to me, dead. I don't think he voiced him, obviously, but he definitely physically played him. Jeremy Bulloch is obviously the guy who plays Boba Fett, but let me know. I know there's a guy who subscribed to my channel who knows all the information about stuff like that, so let me know. You might remember I did a video on Wedge recently, the snowspeeder Wedge, and as I said in that video, I have a purpose for him in the future, which is to have him just as I have him here, sort of displayed as he would be pre-battle, you know, when Leia's talking to all the pilots and they've all got their helmets off, or some of them do anyway, like Hobby and a few others. He looks really cool just like that, Wedge, very nice with his cap on there and the helmet under the arm. Two fighters against that Star Destroyer, you know what I'm on about. And this guy here, surprisingly enough, is one of my favourite Star Wars pilots ever, and it's Zev Seneska, also known as, excuse me, it's not focusing very well on him, Rogue 2. I like this guy a lot. I love him because I'm really sorry. Oh, it's not focusing. I'm really sorry. Let me try and focus on him. Come on. yeah, he when the snowspeeders come out, and when I was a kid, I loved snowspeeders. He's the first guy you see flying one. He's inside. Commander Skywalker, you copy. This is Rogue 2. I loved it, and I thought he was cool, man. I think he died in the battle, though, later on, which is a shame, but I think he would be a great candidate for re-release in the future, because that's an old figure now, from the 30th anniversary, I believe, and he would be cool on a vintage card, because the only pilot we've got on a vintage card is that Ralta in Hoth, associated with Hoth, I mean. So let's move it inside the Echo Base arena with some of these guys involved with the battle. This is a lovely, lovely figure, albeit very expensive. This is the Rebel Soldier Hoth. I beg your pardon, it's not. It's the Rebel Soldier Echo Base. Why isn't it focusing? Thank you. Thank you. Work with me, camera. Work with me. There he is. This figure is expensive. I couldn't tell you if he's ever been released anywhere else. All I know is that I had to open one of these, which meant that I had to open something that was probably double the retail value or the retail price, which is a bit of a it's nice to get figures as cheap as possible if you're going to open them up. But anyway, he's great, and he's an essential element if you want to get a nice display of characters associated with the Battle of Hoth. Now then, yeah, okay, Luke Skywalker now. Now this Luke is not the vintage figure. Here is the vintage Luke. It's almost a kit bash, the one I just showed you. I'll come back to him in a minute. This is the vintage collection Luke Skywalker. The difference between the two is the head. The wrap and the goggles are a separate piece in this, and they do look quite good when he's got them on, but I prefer to have my Luke with his, if you're going to see his face, you want to be able to see the dangly bit. Like most of the soldiers and people at Hoth, always you could see this, the dangly wrap, whatever you call it. I just like the vintage 80s Luke figure. Yeah, it was on as part of a piece of the figure. But you get that with this one. This is the Black Series TIE Fighter line Luke Skywalker, by the way, which is almost a bit of a kit bash of the vintage figure. And there he is, except this one has a slight difference. You can see there a little bit of Wampa Ice Creature damage. Oh, I just lost the focus again. I'm very tempted to stop this video. I've done this, this is like my third attempt at doing this video, to be honest. I'm getting a bit bored of it going wrong, but there he is. You can see it. It's nice. But, so I didn't think I'd want him loose, but actually, the last few weeks I've changed my mind. I do want this one loose, this Luke here, because he would look great on a Tauntaun. I've never really been one for animals and creatures. I like my figures just to be the scaled human size things, but he would look great on a Tauntaun. Of that there's no doubt. Speaking of Tauntauns and finding Luke, here is Han Solo. I do like this figure as well. This is from the Saga line of 2011 as well, although I think he might have been repacked or put somewhere else. I'm not sure. But this figure is very reminiscent of the 80s figure, because obviously it's Han with hood up, except I think you can remove those goggles. Here is another Han, which I would love this guy loose. I really would. This is what Han looks like in the ice tunnels of Echo Base. You know, not likely the speeder's running. But he pretty much goes out on his own. A very heroic moment for Han Solo there, where he gets on his Tauntaun and gets out there. So it just shows the depth of the man. And there he is. I like this one though, with the hood up. Very nice indeed. Inside Echo Base, again, going back inside. This is the recent Rebel Soldier Hoth that came out in the Vintage Collection, which is a repack. He's been apparently in the Search for the Luke Skywalker Battle Pack as well, and maybe even the Legacy Collection, but it turns out, I found out recently, that you can remove this thing on the top. And you can remove that, and you could probably potentially do a bit of army building and head swapping, which is quite a nice idea. That is not all one piece. That does come off the head, the wrap there is what I mean. And this is where I've got gaps. This is the only General I own. This is General Ralph McQuarrie, which is nice, a nice little Easter egg for the man who was responsible for a lot of the visual elements in the whole Star Wars, the design of the universe, and that's Ralph McQuarrie, and they've made him a little figure. And if you're going to give anybody any kind of rank, then it has to be General, doesn't it, for Ralph McQuarrie. He's done so much for the Star Wars universe. But on that note, I would love to own a General Rieekan. In fact, he could possibly come out, be happy for them to bring him into the vintage collection, because I can't remember the last time was that they put him out as a figure, but he's expensive to get now. And then, of course, Leia. I love Carrie Fisher in Empire Strikes Back. She's gorgeous in that film. And there is the card back. I was very lucky to win this figure loose. On eBay, a guy was selling a load of figures, and he literally listed them as Star Wars figure. So that's a bonus. If he'd listed it as Leia Hoth Vintage, it would have got more people watching it, and the auction price would have gone up way higher than it did. I think I won it for £2, and it was in the week as well, midweek, which is a good time for winning stuff on eBay. And then finally, Taryn Farr, who came out in the Black series, which is a shame because she was in the line of figures that were just following the previous vintage collection, and it's a shame that she didn't come out on a vintage card, because I don't think anybody would be particularly happy to see her repacked again, because she was such a peg warmer that if you bought back a whole load of other figures, the only people who buy them are the people like myself who keep stuff carded as well as loose, and I don't think she'd see many sales and she'd peg warm again. But anyway, there you go, I'll get over it eventually. But that whole line of orange card figures, I do regret that they didn't keep them in or put them in the vintage collection. But anyway, they can't do anything about that now, so let's move on. Let's look at some bad guys. The AT-AT drivers. This is from the Saga collection, or the Saga Legends, I believe, I think it was. But this is, in my opinion, the best AT-AT driver they've ever made, albeit it's 5 points of articulation. But if they put him on a vintage card and articulated him, man, you would have the ultimate AT-AT driver. This is another great figure from the Saga collection, or Saga, whatever Saga collection, I think, from 2006. Brilliant figure, and I think they used the same mould for the special action figure set, the 3-pack of the last vintage collection. So he's yet to come out on his own on a vintage card, but he would be awesome if they could bring back that vintage 80s AT-AT driver card. General Rieekan. I love these chest plates that these guys wear, and you saw that in Solo, a Star Wars story as well. Not only, but yeah, they had loads of soldiers, just like, kind of a World War I kind of scenario, wearing chest plates. But yeah, and even these commanders wear chest plates too. But anyway, this is an AT-AT commander, and that is exactly the same figure that it is, that vintage version of him. And this is, of course, not just any old AT-AT commander, this is General Rieekan. So he's an awesome character, and he could do with a re-release, because if anything, the swivel elbows there are rubbish. Now then, speaking of commanders, this is the I beg your pardon, it is the Snow Trooper, or Imperial Stormtrooper Hoth Battle Gear Commander. I do actually have two of him, but I don't like to display them side by side. I'd sooner just have one of him with two of these drones, you know what I mean? Because there's only really one commander. You could have them maybe in multiple displays, I don't know. But anyway, moving on. This is the a really, really, really great figure. I think we're finishing on this one. I know we've got a couple more to show you. This is this figure here, the Imperial Stormtrooper, or the Snow Trooper from the Battle of Hoth. One of these two is this figure here. I'm not sure which one, but the other one is a repack of the same one from the Saga line of 2011, which was the one I've mentioned a few times now. Navy blue packaging with an orange trim. The paint applications on this figure, though, are outstanding. So good that they're brilliant for army building, because I don't believe that any two are the same. You might not be able to see it on the video, but the paint apps, the weathering and everything on them is so different. It's everywhere as well, just underneath the leg. There's a little bit of sort of dirt paint application there. It's brilliant, so fantastic job. That's when they were making figures like that, back when they knew how to make them proper, you know what I'm saying? That's everything. And this gentleman here, I love this character, not General Rieekan, I beg your pardon, Admiral Ozzel. He is basically the reason why the whole battle happened anyway. That's why Vader got so pissed off with him, because they wouldn't have had to deploy the ground forces had he not come out at light speed so close to the system. All that dialogue in Empire Strikes Back went over my head as a child, but basically Vader's point was that I think the plan was to come out at light speed and bombard the system from the planet, from space, like they did in The Last Jedi at the beginning. But they couldn't do that because they put their defences up, their shields up, and it couldn't be done. So they had to deploy ground forces, which by all accounts is a more expensive practice for the Imperials to do that, and a longer process. So that's why he lost his life, because of making a poor decision. And finally, speaking of Darth Vader, I thought I'd bring out one more time my favourite ever 3.75 Darth Vader, which is this one from the Black Series TIE Fighter line, and also he was in the Orange Card Black Series line, but it's an awesome Vader. I would trade every Vader I have in my life for just this one here. He's supposed to be modelled on the Revenge of the Sith, but I think he suits any era incarnation of Darth Vader. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sticking with me if you've watched all this. I have waffled on for quite a long time. It's so hard to do a live long video like that. But anyway, that is my loose collection of Hoth figures. If you have enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button and please subscribe for more. This is Only One Kenobi. Only one.